Sales Summit sneak peek. Woohoo!
Woo!
Happy Halloween, everybody, and happy hunting from here from Maine. I'm Carol Mahoney for those that are joining in. Your MC extraordinaire for our sneak peek and for our live Q&As. And I am so thrilled that we're starting off this Sales Summit sneak peek. I want to thank our hosts, Women Sales Pros, and our sponsor for the entire event, Membrane. The Membrane team is, without this, none of this would be possible without
Hey, Membrane.
Hey, Membrane.
Woohoo!
I'm super excited, Lori, that you could join us as president of Women Sales Pros. Say hi to everybody. We've got some people that are joining in live already.
Hi, everyone. Great to have you here. We're so excited about our first ever event, virtual event. We've been talking about this for a long, long time, and I'm so excited that it's finally happening.
It's
And
alive.
thanks to you, Carol. Carol
It's
has
alive.
put in hours of work behind the scenes, hours and hours of work, and so has Membrane. And this is no small undertaking. It's a really big deal, and I'm just so thrilled that we're gonna do this next week.
I know, I can't wait. So we're joined and lucky to have Deb Calvert with us, the co-author of Stop Selling, Start Leading, and president of People First Productivity Solutions. That's a little bit of a tongue twister, Deb. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I am also excited, Gretchen, to see you with your costume over there, my fellow sales nerd and president of Braveheart Solutions. I love that in your LinkedIn bio. And hi, I see Amy Franco there, author of Modern Seller and founder of the Impact Instruction Group. Hi, Amy.
Hello, everybody.
And the Christy Jones, principal of the Sales Acceleration Group. Welcome to the group, Christy.
Thank you. So excited.
I am too. And last but certainly not least, I believe we also have Krista Moore, author of Race to Amazing and president of K Coaching. Krista is not here. Okay, so we're missing
Danita.
Krista.
You have Danita.
We have Danita Bai.
Oh,
Danita
yes,
Bai,
and I'm the pumpkin today.
Author of Millennials Matter. I love this book because I have two millennials and I work with millennials every day. And Danita, you're in the Dakotas, right? So is it getting cold there yet?
It is getting cold.
It is
Yeah.
here too, in Maine. You know, they always say in Maine, if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes, it's going to change. So I'm going to try to do my best Maine accent. I've worked so hard all my life to get rid of it, but it's Q4 and it's time for hunting. I've got my Old Glory beer ready to go. I got my BB gun for the squirrels. We are going to get some sales growth happening here. So we've had over 600 people register so far. We've got time for some more people to chime in. And we've had over 160 questions that have been sent in.
Wow.
And I'm like, so many questions. But
They're
there's
good
common
questions.
themes. That's a lot of questions. And it's I think telling of the fact that there are so many sales leaders and sales managers out there that they're still trying to figure some stuff out, even at the end of the year. So I am so glad that you've all volunteered your time to help us, to help them to get all of these questions answered. And let's kick it right off, because we've only scheduled about 15 or 20 minutes for this to give people a sneak peek. And for those of you that are joining us, if you've got questions you want me to ask our sales experts here, please just type them in the Q&A chat pane. I will be monitoring those as we go, and we're going to be diving into some of these questions. So without too much further ado, I would love to start with you, Deb, because Michael sent us in a question and asked, and we all think of this too, and I'm especially thinking of this now, is how is this going to resonate for first impressions people? But since first impressions are so essential to making the sale, how do we make a good first impression?
Well, a good first impression comes when you are not trying to impress anyone. If you're trying to impress someone, you're talking about you. You're thinking about you. You might be thinking about your product. You might be trying to pitch, and pitching is not going to make a good first impression. So walk it back. Think about the person you're talking to. Think about what is important to them. Get to know them a little bit. Keep it human to human. A good first impression mainly comes from being other-oriented.
I love that, because as you know, I typically wear that t-shirt that says "Not about me" upside down. I give it to all of my salespeople and coaches and managers, and even C-level executives, because I think that's something to remember that's important at every level of the organization. Anything to add to that, my sales experts, before I move on to our next question? All right. Looks like we're going to jump into our next question, which, Danita, I think that this is something that's right up your alley when you're working with millennials. Is we've all had this happen of getting into that slump, that rut. What's your advice for Remy when he asked, how do I get out of a slump?
So I have two pieces of advice. First is go back and look at your goals. The goals that we create are so critical in stimulating our kind of unconscious behavior. When we wake up in the morning, our brain is thinking about our goals, even though we may be thinking about our cup of coffee. So, number one is to go back and relook at your goals and revitalize that. And then number two is sometimes we need to set some short-term goals. I was talking with someone yesterday. He was in a slump. And I says, well, what are your goals for the week? And he goes, well, I'm going to get better at this. What's that mean? You start to put something concrete and measurable. So at the end of the week, you can pat yourself on the back and throw a mini party when you achieve it.
That's awesome.
Two ideas.
And I know personally for myself, we all get into these slumps, and sometimes you have to take a step back and think about, why am I doing this in the first place, and set some smaller goals that are achievable. In psychology, they actually call that the building of self-efficacy. When you can have small wins along the way, it encourages you to think bigger. Oh, the dog must have found some deer out back. I'll be right back, guys. But before I do, I got one more question.
Can I add something, Carol?
Yeah, please do.
I wanted to say that if you're in a slump, another thing you can do within your office, if you're working in an office, is help somebody else. I was in Boston last night, and I heard Beck Holland, who is amazing SDR leader, and she gave a whole session on her own time to other SDRs outside of her company to, just help everyone with more personalized messaging. And you can't help but do something like that and then feel better and know that you're helping in a big scheme of things to improve the profession of sales and to help individuals to get their jobs going and to think and not just give whatever same old stuff people have been saying time after time again that's not working. So I think helping others can be a really good idea.
I think that's a great suggestion as well. And any other advice from our experts? How do we get out of a slump? How have you gotten out of a slump in the past?
I have one thing that might be a little unconventional is I like to do a workout or like some kind of movement or exercise. It may not be immediately getting me out of a slump, but like if I'm having a rough day, I just getting out of my office, and even if it's just taking a walk.
Yeah, getting some fresh air,
Yeah.
Just reset the brain wave pattern that you're in right now. That's actually great advice. Yoga works for me. Running after deer in the wood, that also works for me. Yeah. And then, bringing home some bacon for Pa. But we've got so many more questions to get through. And this is actually something that I've spoken about recently when we did the Rev It Up Summit in Boston with Women Sales Pros about keeping our teams accountable. This was sent in by a sales leader who wants to know, how do we hold our team accountable and help them to understand why they're not hitting those goals? There's a good way to do it and maybe not so good of a way to do it. Danita, what do you think there?
Well, the first thing is there needs to be clarity on what the goals are.
Mm-hmm.
Again, was talking with someone yesterday and was talking with the sales manager, asked them, well, what are the goals that your salesperson has? Because they were disappointed in their performance. And they said, well, same thing. Well, wait, we need them to get better. I'm like going, do they even know what the minimum target is? Do they know what the goal is? Do they know what great performance looks like? So, number one, clarity on the goals, because without that, there's no accountability anywhere.
Yeah. And this was actually a question that was also related to hiring. Gretchen, I know that you were talking a little bit about this, but one of the questions that we got in from some sales managers was, how do we keep a new sales hire motivated? And Danita, you've spoken so much about goals and their importance. Gretchen, how does that play out in the hiring process?
It actually is incredibly important, and to set the expectations early on. And I'm a big proponent of the salesperson needs to recognize that it's their job to get to the appropriate level of proficiency to be able to do the job well. It's not the manager's job to spoon feed everything. Now, obviously, they have to, provide resources and tools and that kind of thing. And when we think about goals, I actually think about getting an understanding, a deep understanding from each individual salesperson. What are their personal goals? What are they trying to accomplish? How much money do they need to make and why? And then it makes, and surprisingly, they usually want to make more money than what they would make if they just took the goal from their boss. And marry those together, and then it makes it much easier to hold people accountable to the behaviors and the activities that they need to do to produce adequate business, to get the money that they want, et cetera, et cetera. So really tying those things together, but starting and making sure that the individual is accountable and owns their goals, and then what are they going to do to accomplish their goals and make the amount of money that they want to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Lori, I know that you work with a lot of sales teams on their hiring process and the right way to hire and to motivate. Any thoughts to add there of how to keep a new hire motivated to continue the learning process?
Personalized onboarding. So no more generic, this is what we do for everybody. It needs to be more personalized. And by the way, that will retain more women as well in particular, but also everyone needs a more personalized experience.
Yeah.
Carol,
Yes.
it's one other thing with one of the things that the research is telling us, and we all know that with millennials, feedback and what I call feed forward needs to happen more regularly. Gone are the days where you could throw someone out there and check in with them once a month or even once a week. There needs to be regular ongoing communication and feedback and again, what I call feed forward about what's happening today or what happened and how can we leverage that moving forward in order to accomplish, as Gretchen said, your goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we really have to amp that up.
One more addition, Carol. Yeah, I see a lot of sales managers just working so hard to try to get people to do something and to do something more. And what they're really trying to do is light a fire underneath someone. They're pulling all the levers for extrinsic, external motivation. So I want sales managers to remember that it's a lot more powerful if you can find the spark inside someone. And when you ignite that spark inside, it works a lot better. It's much more sustainable. It burns a lot brighter than trying to light a fire underneath someone.
Absolutely. There's so many studies that show that tapping into that intrinsic motivation, I call it the fuel for the fire in their belly as to what's going to really drive them. And Danita, as you've worked with millennials and talked with them, they're driven by the purpose of something. I'm not just going to do something because that's the way it's been done or because that's why you say the way it should be done. We've got to really tap into that. And with the workforce that we're getting today, it's not that difficult to do. It's really just a human conversation to have. So speaking of human conversations, Amy, one of the questions that we got in, and I know that one of the things that you talk about is aligning how the modern seller relates to today's modern buyer. And some of the questions that we got in were around cold calling or that initial pitch, and how do we take a cold call and make it a warm call and build that rapport? Any suggestions for some salespeople struggling there?
Yeah, my personal philosophy is if I have a relationship that I'm looking to build that's cold, I am looking for ways to warm that up. And the one way that I look to warm it up is to look to my network. That's always where I start. So do I know someone who's connected to this person, whether it's through LinkedIn or maybe some other avenue, but that is always where I start. So if I can find someone that I know well enough to make an introduction, I start there. If I don't have someone that could make that introduction for me, I'm looking for something, doing my homework, looking for something that I think could be valuable to that person. And then that is what I would use as a lever to introduce myself, to provide something that could be valuable to them. Having done my research, what might be happening in their industry, to see if I can warm it up that way. And at least I'm always just looking for what's next. Or is it earning the phone call? Is it earning the meeting? I'm not looking to sell something. I'm looking for that next step in building the relationship.
Yeah. And it's sometimes the small things and being able to build that rapport. And again, going back to Deb's point about making it all about the other person, I think sometimes that we get hung up in that, what are they going to think when we say this? Or what are they going to think about us if we say that? And we let our own head get in the way of actually making that kind of one-to-one connection. So we have one question, Christy, that is completely up your alley. It is about prospecting. And by the way, I think you've muted yourself. Yes, we'd love to hear you. There we go. Christy, can you share with us what the title of your talk is for the summit that happens next week?
Yes. The title of my talk next Wednesday is going to be What Dating Taught Me About the Importance of Consistent Prospecting.
Awesome. I love that, because I did a video a little while ago with my son giving me dating advice, and it reminded me of your talk, and I was like, this is going to be the best question for Christy. And the question is, again, around prospecting. What are some of the prospecting methods that you found most successful, and why and how?
Sure. I think one of the things I'm definitely going to focus in on my talk is the consistency of it and making time, right? So what happens is, you get busy, you find every other excuse every day to do everything but pick up the phone or type an email. And so really, you always have to fill the top of the funnel, right? And so time blocking, whatever it takes, it doesn't take a ton of time. If you're also managing sales funnel, you're looking at a couple of hours every day. But you need to have a plan. So I always say Friday afternoon is a great time to plan for the following week. So are you going after some target accounts? Do you have specific contacts that you want to get in touch with? Love the advice about doing some more customized approach. But, one of the things I said in my talk is that the dating fairy doesn't exist. Well, neither does the prospecting fairy. So she is not going to come and put prospects at your doorstep and ring the doorbell and leave. So you really have to put the work in. And, the more you do that, right, I call them the callbacks or the not right now. So the more you're outbound prospecting, you really shouldn't go into any given month at zero. You really should, when you get into your calendar in November, you should be able to see all the people who said, now is not a good time, but go ahead and call me back. And so those are warmer, right? So the more you're putting in the top of the funnel, the more callbacks, the more warm versus cold you're going to have. So just get consistent.
Yes, absolutely. Consistency is key. And I can tell you from my limited experiencing in hunting, you've got to get up early. You've got to be willing to put the time in. You got to look for the track marks. You can bring some beverages with you, because that's going to keep you hydrated and keep you going. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me for this sneak peek. I see that we have a couple of people that are here. Looks like we've got a successful test run and sneak peek. We'll be sharing this with everyone to promote next week. Yes.
And important to mention that this event, this virtual event, is for men and women who are in sales. This is non-denominational. We have tips and advice and strategies for everyone. We encourage everyone to share it, and we promise good information. It's not a selling stage. We're all offering our best insights and information.
Yeah. And everything that we want people to be able to leverage and use for growth in 2020. It's a new decade. It's time that we start changing the face of sales to be aligned with the buyers, to make it not about us, to hire people and onboard people in a way that's customized and specific, tapping into their real whys, and not being inconsistent with prospecting. Because like dating, you've got to be putting yourself out there and realize that they're not rejecting you. It's just maybe not the right time right now. Thanks, everyone. Check us out next week. We'll be including this video and some links to register. Use the hashtag Sales Growth Summit. And we are going to be going live next week. Oh, less than a week away. I can't even believe it. And happy Halloween.
Woo! See you next week.
Thank you.
Happy hunting, everyone.